This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another Transcend in Life podcast. I have a special guest that I've got to know over the last few months. Ned Schaut has a mission to redefine fatherhood. He is a husband to one, a father to five, and a friend to many. He is an author, podcast host, and business owner. He lives in California and can be found outside exploring with his family. Ned has found his greatest opportunity to leave a mark on this earth by embracing his opportunity as a father. He wants to help others that make the same discovery to enjoy their adventure of fatherhood as well. He believes every father who embraces their role intentionally will change the world. Brother, I love your mission. Thank you so much for being here. How you doing?
Yeah, JM, thanks, brother. I am stoked to be here and hang out with you. Talk fatherhood, talk life.
Well, man, your whole journey and what you are all about. I mean, I am a father to two. You have five. But I love what you're doing because I love being a dad. It's truly one of my favorite things in this world. Why is that so important to you? I mean, I love it, but why is that so important to you?
Yeah, man, I think it might be the greatest calling on my life. And I think for men, there isn't this rite of passage into being a father, right? I don't know that our culture or society is just saying how amazing it is to be a father. And so I think a lot of dudes just stumble into it without realizing who they are. And, you know, we kind of make these jokes almost that, you know, late 50s, early 60s, you see these guys who their kids are all moving out and it's like, whoa, what just happened? It's like they missed it. And so I feel like I had this moment in 2015 where I realized the value of my role and realized I didn't want to miss it, and that it would be probably the coolest thing I did with my life was my role of fatherhood. So I wanted other dudes to know about it. You know, I wanted them to realize how awesome it is to be a dad.
Well, I think that's amazing, dude. And you wear so many hats. It's not like you're dad and that's it. I mean, we're talking business owner. We're talking for many years youth pastor. You have so many things going on. Tell me your journey to become father, the dad that you are today. You're very proud of the husband that you are, and you should be, because it sounds like your relationship is incredible. But tell me your story about how you even got to where you're at today.
Yeah, man, I'll be quick. We just celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary. I should have saw it as a sign, but I was playing drums at church at 18 years old. This girl walks in a pink dress. I'm like, who's that girl? And ran out after church looking for her, found her. Fast forward, married at 21, first kid at 23, and then we thought, let's have another kid. And then that kid was Violet. That kid was 4 months old. So we had, a 2-year-old, a 4-month-old, and then whoop, check it out, you're pregnant with twins. So that was wild. We don't remember that whole year. So we had 4 under 4 and 3 girls and a boy. And we thought, you know what? We don't remember having the twins. Let's have another kid because it'll for sure be a boy and we'll remember having kids is fun. So we had a 4th girl, Stella. And so now we're rocking a 7-year-old, 2 11-year-olds, a 12-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So that is the road to fatherhood. If that's what you're asking, or are you asking more about the realization of fatherhood being critical for me?
Well, I'm asking both, I guess, man, because, again, you grew up pretty darn fast, getting married that young.
Yeah, man. I think because my wife and I were just reminiscing on this, celebrating our anniversary on Friday, and I think I was 28 and had 4 kids, Dude, it was rough. But I'm 37. I just turned 37. I feel like I have the wisdom of like a 50-year-old.
Well, it must have been that amazing manual that we got when kids popped out, right? That's
yeah.
What taught you how to be a dad?
Yeah, I was also reminiscing, laughing with my wife. My first kid, I'm wearing a backwards hat right now. We had Brooklyn at, the middle of the night. I'm 23. And I'm wearing a backwards hat, I think the nurses are like, this kid's screwed. But you know what? We figured it out. We had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, how things have changed, yet how they stayed the same, brother.
Yeah,
you look 23, got the hat on backwards. You just have a few more kids in tow. So
yeah, exactly. I just, I wake up at 4 a.m. to do all the things I want to do. So,
well, let me ask you this, just because, again, his book, Rebel and Create, you guys, you definitely need to check it out if you're interested in being a better dad, which I would love to see more guys do that, and gals, because it's a good book, a good family book, in my opinion. But there was this moment where you're like, man, I have to not change my ways, but I have to be more intentional is what I would say. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm always entrepreneur minded. I mean, my wife, bless her heart, man, I always have an idea. I'm not low on the idea panel. So I'm always working on something. And the main thing I had been working on was creating this youth center. I wanted to build this thing that nobody had ever seen before. In the book, I say, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie where they're all sneaking under the fence to Shredder's lair. That to me is just a epic spot. And so that's what I was working towards. And I think I put a lot of my value in that. And I've always been in sales. I put a lot of value in just try to crush the other dudes and go after it. And I was always a good dad, compared to traditional dads, which I also think is a total joke, right? We have such low expectations for dads, because we're capable of so much. And, so 2015, all these things came to a crashing halt, and I realized, man, all the things I desire as a man, right? I had this moment. What is it that I want? I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a mark on this earth. I want to matter. I want to be respected, loved. And so I was pursuing those things out in the world, which I don't think is bad, right? I'm still going to be grinding, building business. I'm still going to be trying to be a leader, but not before my family, right? How many CEOs and pastors or whoever do you see sacrifice their family for something else? So that's it, man. 2015, I realized that, and then I wanted to share it with other people that my first call, my first priority is my family.
Well, I like how you say that. It's like you can identify as so many things, and maybe you did in your youth, or at least you kind of said that in the book, where it's like, I identified as being a business guy, as an entrepreneur. I identified as being a youth pastor. But you really got clear on, and I want you to talk about what you do, because I think so many people could take away from this. And again, I don't want to give away all the book, and I don't think I am.
No.
But going away for 2 days or 3 days, that quiet time, that meditation, that journaling, introspection to really know, what am I and what do I want? That's kind of how that came to be?
Yeah, for sure. So funny enough is I've actually journaled since I was 18, and I don't know for sure what got me into it. I know that my dad always journaled, and he would tell, like when he graduated high school, he went on this epic motorcycle trip for 3 months from Wisconsin to Mexico, and he journaled all about it. So I started journaling about my life, my highs, my lows, whatever. So I think it was probably 2013, 2014 or so, I had this realization that, being involved in a church and being involved in businesses, I seen the CEOs and the pastors going away for retreats. And I also saw a lot of dudes sacrificing their families, not putting their family first. So I thought, how much more valuable is my family to me? I'm going to be the only dad, hopefully the only husband my wife ever has. If I want that to be the case, I need to put as much intentionality, if not more, into growing as a human, knowing who I am, knowing where I am today, knowing where I want to go. And dude, life is so fast-paced and so busy. If you don't stop and pause and reflect, you're never going to decide where you're headed. You're never going to know where you're headed. So I started going on a 2-day retreat every year for that purpose, to reflect on where I'd been and think about where I want to go. Take a step back from the day-to-day grind of just kids and running around and making dinner and waking up and all that, and be able to take this like high view of, okay, where are we? Where are we headed? What are the values I want my kids to have? How do I want to be to my wife? So I started doing that. And then in 2015, it really became more about the family. Then also on those trips going, what am I doing for business? What am I doing for ministry? Those things were ripped away, so it just became about family.
Well, and that's where the whole idea of Rebel and Create came from, right?
Yes.
I mean, that wasn't like, you haven't had that since you were 5 years old, or at least you hadn't verbalized it. It was like this poignant, like this smack in the face. I want to rebel and create. And what does that mean, brother? Because I love but I want the audience to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, if you look at my book, it's not me on the cover, saying, 5 Steps to Be a Good Dad. It looks like a book you'd find, hopefully on an old ship or in an old library. It just says rebel and create on the front. My name's not on the front. And so that's kind of a story with that. But rebel and create means so much to me. And when a dad held that, I wanted him to go, this dude's trying to connect with me. This dude's trying to meet me where I am and share with me. And so what happened is rebel and create. I've always been rebellious. I love rebellion, and most dudes do. We're fighters, we're rebellious, we're warriors, and we don't tap into that enough, and so I think what we end up doing is sometimes we'll be rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious. But hey, if I'm going to tear down this building, what am I going to build afterwards? Right? And so rebel and create can be, I'm going to rebel against being on my cell phone at the dinner table so that I can create memories where my kids are like, Dad would always ask us fun questions at dinner, and we'd have these crazy funny dinners and stuff, right? Because I was engaged. Or it could be, and this is really the main point for me, is I want to rebel against what the church told me, what the world tells me a man looks and feels like, what a father looks and feels like. And I'm going to go create what I know is inside of me that nobody's pulled out of me. Like look at the world for mothers. Mothers are just so respected. And I mean, if you say motherhood or Mother's Day, there's just so much to that. And they've earned it, right? I mean, a lot of times dudes have just kind of been sitting on the sidelines. So moms have earned it. And I think it's time that us dudes step up, not because I want some of the light too, but because they've earned for us to step up and help them just as much, right? Like my example I said a minute ago is there's low expectations for fathers. If you see me dropping my kids off at school before work, you're like, oh, what a great dad, right? Oh my gosh, he takes his kids to school. You see the line of cars of moms doing it, and we're like, that's her job, or we might just even criticize her for this, that, or the other. She didn't get ready, or she's just wearing her yoga pants, like whatever. So moms need it and kids need it. The role of the father is huge. So rebel and create is I'm going to rebel against the Homer Simpsons, the Al Bundys, and it's not just the fathers. I'm also going to rebel against the idea that my purpose is just to provide and protect. So it's kind of both of those things. Like I'm not just going to be the crap dad, and I'm also not just, my identity isn't Ned the business owner, Ned the youth-centered maker, Ned the whatever. I want the primary thing to be that I'm creating with my family, because it's not just about my family. It's not just like, well, what is our family going to go on our summer trip this summer? It's way more than that. The way I love my daughters, that's the kind of man they're going to go seek out to marry. The way that I love my wife, my son's going to watch that, right? Like we're talking things that are beyond our life. These are big deals. Men do not realize that by the touch of my hand or the words that come out of my mouth, the way that I touch my family, the way that I speak to my family, like even saying touch my family, we automatically go to something weird, right? Like I had this thought just the other day, but the way that I can touch my wife's leg and bring security to her, or the way that I touch my kid, I can bring security, stability to their life, or I can bring destruction.
Yeah, man, he's an interesting guy, because if you see him, and again, this is the maternal in our relationship with my wife and I. I'm the maternal dude. I always have been.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a jock from Montana. I mean, it's not like that was, to your point with identity and seeing the world a certain way. We all have those biases. They are literally marketing, and we see that stuff.
Right.
But I love that, because again, you're from the skate culture that you talked about that in the book. You are definitely a what I would consider a guy's guy, definitely an athletic dude. But I love how you don't say, I'm going to look this way, or I'm certainly not going to buy into this bullshit where it's like, I'm not going to be a good dad, or I'm not going to be involved. I'm absolutely going to be involved. I love it, man. And the whole idea of breaking something down, but then creating something, that is really amazing. So I'm just interested, what is something that that maybe you're afraid of, and something that you've overcome? And maybe this started with being a dad or a parent. I don't know. Maybe that was a freaky time at 23. God, I would have been freaked out to have a kid at that age, but you obviously have done such a seamless job to me. It seems so easy to you. But what's something you've been afraid of, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, dude, life is hard. Marriage is hard and messy constantly working on that. Some days I'm a great husband, and other days I'm a douche, right? I'm the same as everybody, but I'm also pausing to reflect and try to get better every day. I'm not going to stay a douche. I'm less a douche this year than I was last year, right? It's all growth and progress. So I want my life to matter. I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, I'm afraid to fail, but I'm not really afraid. Like, I'm still going to try a bunch of stuff. So I don't know that I'm even afraid to fail anymore. I've failed so many times, so I'm kind of not worried about saying, hey, I failed at this, because now I realize just how much you can learn from it. And as you mature, you realize things don't work out all the time, but if you can gain from it, that's good. So what am I afraid of now? I think it's every stage of my kids, I want to be in tune with them. So sometimes having 5, having 2, it's still, am I paying attention to them? Do I know them? Am I in tune with them? But then also not being so overbearing that I'm like obnoxious with them. So I think because I'm asking the questions, I think I'll be okay. But that's what I would be afraid of, is pushing my kids away. And then I guess my deepest fear is, you see families, and the families were great families, but sometimes kids just can make their own decisions, right? So I'm not afraid of, say, my kid getting pregnant in high school because of what it would look like for the image of Ned Schaut and his Rebel and Create brand. That's a bunch of bullshit to me. That I don't want to fake anything. And I wouldn't throw my kids under the bus just for the sake of being transparent, right? But I guess that would be my fear, is that my kids, because they have choice, they could go out into the world and do whatever they want, regardless of what I try to impart into them. But I mean, for me, I think that's one of the reasons why God made it, so that I could have kids, so that I would be so in tune with the reality of the world that he made and how he made us. I can love my kids. I can love my wife. And at the end of the day, they have the choice to do what they want to do.
Yeah, man, that's what we have to do. That may be the hardest thing as a parent, is letting them become that independent soul that absolutely is going to go, skin their knees, riding the bike, and then do it again and again, make all those. But that's a big part of it. So you started with, and you said, I'm not afraid to fail. No question, because as an entrepreneur, I promise you failed. And great job
Lots
doing
of times. Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those failures and what your process, or what you do to overcome? Because again, one of the greatest compliments I can say is, dude, you failed a lot. Great job.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome that somebody's not afraid to go get their ass kicked, get back up, and do it again and again. That's a huge part of this whole podcast, is going from fear to freedom. So what did that look like for you, man?
Yeah, so I failed a ton of times, and just thinking about the book as one, it took me 3 years to write it. English was I was probably worst at that in high school. So I wrote it, and then I brought it to my wife, and she read it, and she's like, it could be good, but you got a lot of work to do. So that was a little discouraging. And then I put time into it. I mean, wake up at 4 a.m. and write for 3 hours, tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. So I got it to this place where I felt good to give it to my dad, because my dad's an English teacher. I never got to take one of his classes, maybe why I sucked at English. And then he gave it back to me, redlined a lot, right? And so there was this kind of defeating moment where I was like, I just imagined myself getting back into the ring, because I thought I was going to get it back and be like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Print it. Not the case. So I get it back, and so I just saw myself, dude, shake it off and get back in the ring. Go put the time in, right? If you want it to be killer, go put the time in. So I did. I put another like 60 hours into it, and started tracking that. So that's an example. Another example was when the Epic skate park didn't work out. It was teed up. It was perfect. It was all my dreams coming true in this moment. And it just didn't work out. Now, in hindsight, I'm so thankful it didn't work out for multiple reasons. But the process for that was longer. The process for that was several trips by myself, several carve out time, set an appointment with myself to go and think about it, to go reflect on it, to go talk to God about like, dude, what is up with this? To then come to some peace, and to then have, the opportunity, giving myself the opportunity to look at everything, So I think if I were to give advice to somebody who's failing is one, you have to look at it as a win. If you don't just roll over and not do anything with it, you could learn so much. So just write down, or however you obtain knowledge, what you learned from this so that you could take it into your next thing.
And we won't make this all about the book, but it's such a good analogy it reminds me so much of life. You literally said, hey, Dad, I want feedback. Give it to me. So whatever he sent back was not unsolicited, which never goes well, right? Like unsolicited advice, forget it. It's terrible. But you have to be willing to receive that. And it hurts, man. That stuff hurts where you're like, I crushed this. Actually, son, there's a couple, sentences without red line, but the most is. But I think that's so important. You're so willing to get that feedback. Is that something that you've just learned through your time? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of would rather point out my failures than somebody else, or not failures, but the things wrong with whatever I'm doing. I want to catch them first. But what I've realized is, one, I've got a wife who is just incredible. She will communicate to me. She's not a yes person, right? So she's awesome. And what I've realized is with her as well, if I really want to be a great leader, if I really want to create something that's great, I have to surround myself with people who are willing to tell me when my stuff sucks.
Yeah, man.
Because I want it to be good. I want to provide value. I don't really, as much as I do, just want people to tell me how awesome I am. That's just not going to do anybody any good. It's going to make me a turd, and it's going to make my stuff not valuable to people. So I try not to surround myself with anybody who's just going to tell me my stuff's good. I want you to say, dude, it could be tweaked here, there, wherever. Like even now I'm prepping for that TEDx, and I just sent it to 8 dudes to watch, but I selected them purely on the fact that I knew, and it was hard to get some of their stuff. I didn't like this. That didn't make sense. It was hard because it's like I've put probably 100 hours into it, maybe 80, a lot. I've been tracking that. I put a lot. But my why, I want more dads to know who they are. So I've got to be willing to put the work in. I put that into context for a moment. I put 100 hours into something, and I'm going to give it to 8 people, and just knowing they're going to come back and it's going to crush. Like, I killed that. I put everything I got into it. Just sign it off. Give me the gold star. And they're like, nah, bro, you need work here. That's, I'll tell you what, bro, that is putting yourself out there as much as writing a book and putting it out there, right? Because just like you, I assume, I know I've had people say, I didn't like that part. And it's like, oh. Yeah, like your favorite part.
For sure, bro. You're like, ouch. Let me ask you this. Who's been the most influential person to you in your life?
I've always had really good mentors. I've always surrounded myself with dudes who are better than me. And so it would be really hard to just say one person. Dang. My parents, I think the greatest gift they gave me is they are very opposite in their beliefs about a lot of things, but they fought for their marriage. And so one of the greatest things that they did for me was to show me that it's possible to be married to somebody, that community is possible. Because that's like at the core of what our world needs is people to work together. So I'd say my parents were very influential, but I think if you're going down more the lines of, I don't know, business or family, I guess
it's open-ended, brother.
Whatever.
I know you get inspired. I've seen you get fired up, and it's like, so I know there's so many, like you said, it's hard to pick.
Yeah, it is hard to pick. So I'll just throw out a few. As far as what's helped my mind spiritually the most is I would say there's a pastor in Lincoln, Nathan Oates. That dude has influenced me because we meet once a month and he asks me the hard questions and he throws the things out at me that nobody else, I probably trust him more than anybody next to my wife. As far as, I mean, we live in such a cool time that anybody could be my mentor because I could go get your books, I could read your podcast or listen to your podcast, whatever, right? So on spiritual, Rob Bell, people like him, people don't. That dude has opened my mind to not be, because I grew up Assemblies of God, like very, I would say, not very, but somewhat religious. And that's opened my mind. Seth Godin on business level. And then John Strzelecki, my favorite book. I have given 300 plus copies of this book away.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's not very big in the United States. It should be, but it's called Big Five for Life. Solid. And somebody gave that to me 10 years ago, and I've given over 300 away.
Well, you're paying it forward, brother. I think you wrote in the book, I think you did reference that once or twice.
Probably,
so
yeah, because it's been big for me.
If you've given away 300 of anything, I mean, right now I want to give away 300 high fives just because we're going through COVID. But,
yeah.
Outside of that, man, that's a lot to be given away. I love that you have that check-in at least monthly. I think you said Nathan Oates. That's really cool that you do that. So you're clearly being intentional, like you said, to grow. What else is part of your process to make sure that you're showing up as the best dad, as the best husband, as the best, business partner? What is your process? Because you clearly have something there that I think a lot of people could learn from.
Yeah, it's funny because there's so much out there right now, like morning routine and your rhythm and your rituals and all this stuff. There's so much out there. I've tried so many things, and I think everybody should, right? And we go through different seasons, so things are going to work and things aren't. But learning, constantly learning. I mean, always reading, right, and growing. Excuse me. Making sure that I'm meeting with somebody to pour into me, like the Nathan who's going to ask me the questions. Because if I want to be a leader in the community, there's going to be things that come at me, and I want to be prepared for them because I don't want to let my wife and kids down because they are primary. But yeah, I'm super. Every day I'm waking up, I'm working out, I'm tracking my sleep. I track a lot of things. So, I mean, I could tell you how many hours I worked on marketing last year. I could tell you how many hours I worked out last year. I'm tracking these things because it's going up against my goals. It sounds excessive maybe, but like the things that matter are my energy, my time, and money in a sense. Like those are resources. And I want to use them to the best that I can. So I'm constantly learning in those areas and then putting it into practice. And then also sometimes just shutting off the learning and taking action, right? Like at some point I've heard enough of this, that, and the other. I need to take action. So making sure that I'm balancing my action with the planning and the investment in myself and all that. So, I mean, I'm constantly changing my morning shake and changing what I'm eating. And, just like everybody who's trying to grind it out. At the end of the day, though, I also try to balance it with being Ned and enjoying my life and being spontaneous with my kids. Like, I'm not a robot. I don't want to be a robot. I want to put out great content. I want to serve my employees well and my clients well. But I also just want to have fun with my kids and work on the treehouse and ride dirt bikes and vans and board shorts and a backwards hat, right? So
yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. It's like you have a routine, but it is constantly changing, I guess is how I heard it. It's like you said, my morning shake, that's going to change because maybe this isn't serving me right now, or maybe I learned something that could be better. But that sounds really simplistic for you and myself because I embrace change. That's not the case for a lot of people, man. Like, you take away their 3 eggs and bacon in the morning, 2 pieces of toast, you're seriously screwing them up.
Yeah, I will say I do like my routine. So I would say that the core things are that I am working out 6 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. I am making sure I'm drinking water, and I'm making sure I'm getting 6.5 hours of sleep. Those are and then I'm showing up, right? And that then when I'm having a bad day, I'm paying attention to my triggers of what set me off. And then I'm going and apologizing, fixing it, and shortening that time span next time. So like those are the key things that are helping me move my dreams forward with my family.
Makes sense. I got it just because you said one of my favorite words, and I coach on this all the time, both good and bad. But triggers, man. You said it, so I just got to ask you, like, what are those, and because you said, I did something, I got to go fix it. Do you have triggers positive as well, I assume? These are questions that I like to ask people all the time. It's like, what are your triggers?
Yeah, so one of the greatest podcasts I listened to was with, it was Impact Theory, Tom Bayou, and he was interviewing Rob Dyrdek, which is one of my, kid heroes, skater, and the dude is intentional, and he had talked about tracking, and so I started tracking due to that, and I realized I would wake up every morning, and during my workout, I would say like 1 to a 10 of where I was at. And so then at the end of the month, I'd average it, and then I'd notice where my dips were. So that's where I really started noticing the trigger. Because I'd wake up at like a 6, and I'd say, why am I at a 6 today when yesterday I was at an 8 or a 9, right? I never give myself a 10, right? There's always room. And so that's what really taught me the triggers. So I don't know that I necessarily paid attention to it as positives as much. I will say in my journaling, though, I really made an effort to go write down when I had a great day, not just when I had a crappy day. So if you were to go back and read my journals for the last 10 years, you'd notice that. But as far as the tracking goes, I more was paying attention to it to see, why did I have a bad day? What is the thing that made me upset? And then to sit back on it. Because usually it was a relationship thing. It was with somebody who was close to me, and it was me just seeing it from my side. It was me letting my mind take control of me and getting to a point where like I would think negative, that they're thinking negative about me, but I'm like, they don't. Once I stopped and got myself out of it, I'm like, dude, JM wants the best for me, right? If it was you and me, I'm like, JM wants the best for me, and this is what he's been going through the last few days, so that might be why he said this, that, or the other, and it threw me off, versus just being like, that guy's a punk, and he was being a punk to me because I was just seeing it from my side,
right.
So that helped me a ton, and mainly it helped me to not be, irritated for 3 days or whatever. Like, it shortened my time to be able to say, okay, you're just having an off day. Don't put that on somebody else.
You do that in your journaling, so I'm clear, or is this literally you're just like, you know what, let me step back?
Yeah, I have tracking all in like a Google Excel file or Google Sheets or something like that.
Wow. That's crazy, man. I mean, I love it. Dave Asprey, if you ever really geek out on like the superhuman stuff and all that, he's all about the tracking. But it's interesting what you're saying. It's like you're tracking because it's how am I being affected, right? Good, bad, and different. If I'm having, maybe I can only imagine if you didn't work out for 7 days straight, that would probably put you in a funk.
Off. So going back to, I know one of the important things you like to talk about on the podcast is freedom.
Yes.
Right. And so for me, tracking I do get caught up in what's a good word? I do get caught up in getting a lot of value out of working like a robot, in a sense of like, okay, I crushed this in this many hours, and so it's really a mind balance for me because I really want to be just out having fun with my kids. So I have to constantly remind myself the reason I'm doing the tracking, the reason I'm getting up at 4:30 or 5 and like going after it for the day is so that I can be free with my family. But that is work. To transition from one to the other is very difficult, and I'm still working on that. Always trying something, whether it be I put on fun music or I do a quick workout or I go jump on the dirt bike for a minute because I want to do it for freedom. But I think sometimes too, like when you're involved in business and you have control over your own life and a lot, when I go to work, I do have more control than when I show up at home. Right? Because now my kids have the stuff they're going on, and my wife has the stuff going on. They're not just paid employees ready to do whatever. Right? So you have to kind of step into a different, little bit more looser role, I think.
Yeah, man. It sounds like, so filling your buckets to me is how I kind of, like when you hop on the dirt bike, it's like, maybe I'm not at a 10 right now. I need something. I need that jolt. At least that's for me. It's like, dude, if I'm not feeling great, I'm going to go hit the bag. I'm going to go lift the weights if gyms aren't closed right now. Is that kind of what it's doing for you?
Yes, but I think even more than that, it helps remind me who I am at my core, right? Like Ned, it's not just Ned who goes and tries to crush it at work. It's Ned is a lot more than that. I become that guy so that I can have freedom with my friends and my family, both time and economically. So it reminds me, like when I'm on that dirt bike driving around or just go skate outside with my son, it takes like 5 to 10 minutes. And I go, oh, this is what it's all about.
This is my why, brother. Makes a lot of sense. So you've said the word a couple times. I just got to ask, man, what is that legacy that you want to leave, man? And it's just, you talk about seasons of our life that you're going through, and we're in the season of kids, right? And that's what we're really focused on, because we're similar ages with similar kids. But what's that legacy that you're looking to have, man?
Yeah, so I think legacy, when I think about my family, is that I want to set my kids up relationally. I want them to know how to communicate. I want them to know how to have good conflict with people. I want them to not just think of themselves, you know? So, you know, if I think about my family, I believe community at the core is just so important. And I think that we're learning that in our home. You know, we set our kids up for that. So that's the legacy I would like to leave, is that my kids have intentional families, not perfect. It's going to be messy, right? That they could be okay in the mess, right? Mom and dad fight sometimes. That's how life is. People fight with each other. So I want them to learn that now. And then I want them to take that into their homes and teach it to their kids and their kids and their kids. So 500 years from now, the work that I'm doing today impacted my great-great-great-great-grandchildren. And then I want to share that with other men, because my kids might marry your kids one day. So the kind of dad that you are matters to my family tree.
It's pretty interesting, man. If you start going down that rabbit hole, how much you're right about that. Like, your kids can marry my kids, or they could work together, or I mean, it just goes and goes.
And that comes down to what you and I do today. Like, what you and I do today matters 500 years from now, you know? And that doesn't mean we have to go like just crush and smoke the day. No, like, how are you talking to your wife? How are you talking to your kids? I don't care if you work and make $10 an hour or you make $500 an hour. Fatherhood's a level playing field. And when that baby comes out, there isn't the manual. We're all figuring it out, right? And so that's the legacy, man, is I want other dads to see and know who they are.
You know, one of the things if I don't ask this, I'll be irritated. So I have to, just because you've said it a couple times. I wish the one thing, because my folks, dude, I didn't see them fight literally my entire childhood. So I was like, man, marriage is a cinch, bro. And you said it a couple times, and we definitely preach this to our kids, like, marriage is hard. And I don't mean that like it's worth every second.
Everything in life that is great is hard.
I think that's the best way to look at it, right? It's like, dude, this is going to be hard. Let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey,
nothing
kids,
comes easy.
Mom and dad fight because they care, because they love each other. Dude, if I didn't mention that, because I'm telling you, it's the one lesson that with my kids, for sure, I'm like, guys, marriage is very, very hard. It doesn't mean it's not worth it. So anyway.
No, I mean, I think you're straight up. You know, I do think that you need to be aware of the way that you fight, and you need to think about it. And there's been times where we fought and it hasn't been appropriate. You know, it's been a little too much, you know, and I've had to come in and be like, you guys, I'm really sorry. It came out this way, and it was totally wrong of me. No excuses, you know, because I want to teach my son, you know, how you should speak to your wife, you know, and it's not like super crazy, right? But still, and my daughters, I don't want them to think, you know, and my wife won't put up with crap. So if I were to say something, she wouldn't roll over anyway. She would call me out. But I think it's important to pay attention to how you're talking and then how you're communicating with your kids. And I think to do it together, you know, if there is a fight, you know, sometimes to pull your kids in and be like, hey, this is what's up. You know, you might not be able to tell them everything depending on what it is, but you're teaching them. And protecting your kids from everything, in my opinion, you said this a little bit earlier, is not good or healthy.
I mean, that's not what the real world's going to do to them, right?
No.
Man, you've said so many things that I don't want to stop, because I'm just like, what you just said is like, hey, just own up to it. I screwed up. I'm sorry. it won't happen again. And I lost my temper. I did this, whatever. I'm telling you, that is a fear of people to literally say, I am sorry, I screwed up. And I don't know when it started.
Right.
But do you see that a lot in the world right now?
Yeah, I think for sure men don't want to be vulnerable. I think that we look at it as a sign of weakness. Now, and I'll remember I remember a time exactly. We had a bunch of friends over, 6 friends over, and my buddy Ron, I had been giving him crap before about like, oh, just go talk to your wife, whatever. This was like weeks before, and I got heated. My wife said something. I don't even know what it was. And I was heated, and we were all walking, me and the dudes, we're walking outside, and he's like, dude, go in there. You say go in there, and just swallow your stuff and I was like, damn it. This is it. Like, this is the moment of truth, right? So I did, because I had my friends with me. I didn't want to not be the example that I'm trying to tell them, like, dude, you're going to be happy with your wife in 2 days. Like, let's not. So I went in, swallowed my pride, gave her a kiss, said, hey, this doesn't change that either of us aren't upset, but I do love you and I do care about you. So,
oh, sorry.
No. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I got tons of stories like that. I think though, just to say this last thought, if you are every week just being a crazy person and then apologizing, you need to go get help.
Sure.
But when something does happen and you speak out of line, or you can't be perfect. So don't pretend you are, because your kids are going to get screwed up if they think they need to be perfect. Just go own it. It feels so much better. It's really for you. I mean, it feels so much better.
I saw a quote the other day, and it's, do you want to be right or rich? And it's not, I'm not talking about money at this point. Do I want to be right in this moment, or do I want to be rich in my relationship? Like, It's an easy answer, bro. Like, I want to be rich in my relationship or whatever. I don't need to be right, but damn, that ego gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I will throw out just a little bit of a caveat to that is I do think that some husbands just kind of roll over and just become just lifeless, right? Like at some level, I also think you are a man. That doesn't mean that you are better or more powerful, but at some point you also need to own who you are and have a spine, because I think that people around you want to be led, right? And again, even that word right there, when I say led, what does it mean to lead my wife? What does it mean to lead my kids? It means to serve them. Like, flip that triangle upside down and lead by serving them. And if you're not speaking up, if you're not giving your opinion, if you're just always giving your wife what she asks, or your kids, right? I don't want to just make this about that, but I also want to say that sometimes a dude needs to just have a spine.
Well, brother, let me tell you something. This is a whole nother show, and it's like not being emasculated, not just literally. I'm not kidding. I agree with you. Like, I have watched it, unfortunately. I will not name names, but they're like, no, I'm going to defer. And years later, now they're getting beat down because they deferred so much. And what they really wanted was him to be strong and not just give in.
Yeah, it's really strange though, because you see some marriages fall apart because the dude just became such a bitch that he isn't leading at all, and he just thought, I was just trying to meet all her needs, but that's not how a real relationship works, right? There's give and take. So it is interesting, and so it's hard, but that's what it's supposed to be. A relationship is hard. That's why you talk about it. That's why you give your opinion. And it doesn't mean it's going to go her way or your way or the kid's way or your way all the time. But that's the point, is say what you're thinking, share your information, and then make a decision together.
Well, let me just go ahead and mark the calendar. In the next year, we are going to have this one. We are going to talk about this more because I think it is so true, dude. I literally could go for another hour on this subject. I think it is so true. Let me ask you this. What should I have asked you that I didn't know enough to ask?
That's a really great question. What should you have asked me that you didn't know to ask? Man, it's tough, right? Because I put so much in my book, which you read, so you know kind of all about my life, because a lot of it is, how did I come to this rebel and create? And you know me on a business level as well, to some extent. I think that's what I hide from people the most. I hide from people the most the freaking work that I put into building my company, and I think, I still dress, I wear Vans, shorts, and a t-shirt and a backwards hat, but I think if we were to dig into the development, the growth, the strategy behind building a business, those are the things that I don't show as much. And I don't know why that is, but that would be an area that I think that I have a lot to offer, that even saying that out loud feels weird.
I just look at it when you dress like that, like that's the new billionaire, man. You're literally, that's what they look like, bro. These guys are sharp, and it's not about the 3-piece suit anymore. That's almost dead. Not in the Midwest. No apologies to the Midwest. That's not true. But you know what I'm
California.
saying? Yeah. Man, brother, I had such a good time doing this. I love what you're doing with Rebel and Create. I love how you show up in this world. How can our listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, man, I'd love follow me on Instagram at Ned Schaut if you just want to see my day-to-day life with my kiddos, good, bad, ugly. At Rebel and Create, which is I'm always putting up, what we're doing with the book, what we're doing with the journal. We just did a really fun Father's Day gift. And then our website, rebelandcreate.com. Hit me up, shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram, and that's how you can connect with me.
Well, brother, I know you will continue to change the world for a better place, especially those 5 kiddos at home. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, JM, thank you.
Thank you for what you do. Guys, until the next time, continue to transcend in life, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendinlifepodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.